21 Reasons Not to Visit Japan. I'm Chris, this is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, entertaining, and in this live stream, I'm going to be sharing with you some reasons why people don't like visiting Japan. And while I love Japan, if you watch my channel regularly, you'll know it is my favorite country to travel to. There are some people who don't like it. And there are some things that are just cons of Japan or uncool about Japan. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you in today's video, talking about some of the negatives of Japan. Now, I don't want anybody to take away from this video that Chris hates Japan, Chris loves Japan, but Japan is not for everybody, just like any country isn't for anybody. And so today I'm going to be sharing with you some of those things that if you're considering a trip to Japan, if you go down this list of 21 things and you hate all of them too, then you might say, well, Japan is not for me. I'm also going to share with you some of the things about what to consider to avoid these issues so that when you do go to Japan, you don't end up in the shock, perhaps, that makes people dislike it for these reasons. And so the first reason, first con of Japan, and that people notice when they first get to Japan, is small hotel rooms. The hotel rooms in Japan are tiny, particularly in Tokyo and Osaka, the big cities, super tiny. This is an example of a typical business hotel in Tokyo. This one is actually a roomy hotel room. By the way, on the left, that's the leftmost wall. On the right, that's the rightmost wall. And there's probably 1 foot between the edge of the bed and the wall. In Japan, they are masters at their use of space. And my story for you on this one is probably my second trip to Japan. I was traveling there for business, and I was in a city a couple hours outside of Tokyo in a very typical Japanese-style business hotel where the rooms looked very similar to the one I just showed you there. And, for me, I knew what to expect. Those are the rooms. But there was another lady in this hotel, another American, I am sad to say, and I could hear her from my room ranting and raving in the hallway, yelling at the hotel staff about how small the room was, that she can't stay in a room this small, they need to give her a bigger room. And of course they're like, well, ma'am, there aren't any bigger rooms. These are the size of the rooms. And she's just, well, I'm going to go to another hotel. You need to find me another hotel that has bigger rooms. And the hotel staff is trying to explain to her, well, ma'am, see, there's only like 2 hotels in this town, and actually our rooms are the biggest. And she went on and on until another American down the hallway in the same hotel came out and said, lady, shut up and just go to sleep. But I will tell you, she was not a happy camper, and the rooms were so small in Japan that I don't think she's ever going to go back. Now, what I'll tell you about this is not all Japanese hotel rooms are small. Actually, you can get some pretty big Japanese hotel rooms. When we stayed on our last trip in Tokyo, we stayed at the Hyatt Place in Ginza, and our room was palatial. It was like 30 square meters. It was a really big hotel room. But you have to pay more to get those big hotel rooms. The typical ones that cater to Japanese and the ones that are cheapest, they'll be really small, but you'll actually find many hotels, particularly ones that cater to the Westerners too, will have much larger rooms. Kyle on the live stream says, there's no big rooms, wish for me. And Wu Taiwan says, yes, the person I was describing was the loud American stereotype. They absolutely were. Randy asked if I stayed in a capsule hotel. Capsule hotels are the smallest hotels there are, right? They're literally just almost like a tube for you to stay in. I have yet to stay in a capsule hotel. I do want to do that at some point for the sake of this channel, but not yet. All right, I want to put the numbers up on the screen. So that was reason number 1, small hotel rooms. Hotel rooms are too small for many people in Japan. The second reason why you might not want to visit Japan is the crowds can be overwhelming. This is a scene from Harajuku, the main street in this neighborhood. This neighborhood was made famous by Gwen Stefani. It's like the youth home of Tokyo. This was on a weekday. This is a not very crowded day going by this street. The train stations in particular, crazy crowded. Shinjuku Station, one of the major train stations in Tokyo, gets 3.5 million people through the station every day. And so if you're not prepared for it, just being around so many people can absolutely be overwhelming. So if you're looking for a relaxing trip to get away from people, the big cities in Japan are definitely not going to be the place for you. the countryside, actually, you can get away from people, but you do have to get outside of Tokyo and Osaka. Even if you go to Kyoto, which is kind of considered the classic temple town of Japan with a lot of nature, you're going to find lots of crowds at those popular temples. Actually, if you're looking for some natural temple things, I recommend Kanazawa. It's often known as Little Kyoto because you can get away from the crowds there. And Brandon says, yeah, so the crowds in Shibuya, there's the Shibuya Scramble Crossing. I'm sure all of you have seen video from this crossing, but everybody crosses at the same time across it. It's something like 10,000 people, maybe not 10,000, 1,000 people, lots of people cross this intersection every couple minutes. And for you to walk through there, if it's your first time, you'll probably get like bumped into by people because they know where they're going and you don't, and you're just kind of trying to be like Frogger trying to cross the street. But you know, once you get the hang of it and you're like, okay, I understand how to cross, I'll just go behind somebody who's really big and cross, then it is all good. And Falcom says, yes, when you live in a big city or travel to a big city, you have to get used to it. Jay says morning at Shinagawa Station on a weekday is insane. So yes, let's talk about number 3, which is public transportation. The third reason why you might not want to go to Japan is that public transportation is pretty much the only option to get around. And so if you do not like public transportation, Japan is not for you. Why is public transportation about the only way to get around? Because that's just how they've built Japan. That is how they get around, by trains, by subways, by buses, taxis. Yeah, they're really expensive. We'll get to that in number 4. But the other challenges of public transportation in Japan, particularly the big cities, they're so complicated. They're so complicated, it can be really challenging to decide where to go because there's so many different lines. You know, there's a lot of cities that you go to. I mean, even New York City, their subway seems really simple because there's just a few lines, but there's above ground and below ground. There's so many options to get where you're going. It's really important to know how you're going to get someplace, as opposed to in many cities around the world, you can just kind of like end up in a subway station and look at the map and decipher that to decide where you're going to go. In Japan, you almost really need like an app to help you with that. Google Maps will do a good job. Hyperdia will do a good job, but you really could use some help to figure out the connections to make to actually get where you're going. The other challenge with public transportation, if you take it during rush hour, you know, in the morning, 8 a.m., after work, 5 or 6 p.m., you are going to end up pushed into those trains if you're in the busy ones with like zero personal space. And people who end up in those sort of conditions say, I am never going to do this again. Other people just say, I'm just going to avoid the trains from those times because I'm here on vacation. Why do I need to be on the train at 9 in the morning? That's too early to get up if you're vacationing. Go a little later. That's what I would recommend, just avoiding those trains and train stations at rush hour because they're pretty crazy. The other thing you want to pay attention to for public transportation in Japan is there's a last train. Usually it's around midnight, and after that there's usually no more trains until 6 a.m. So if you want to be out for a night on the town, out drinking, you got to make sure to wrap that up pretty early. Otherwise, you have to take a taxi. Why do you not want to take a taxi? Well, that's number 4. It's because taxis are incredibly expensive. These are taxis in front of Harajuku Station. It's a classic train station in Tokyo in front of that busy street that I showed you. Unfortunately, they tore this station down in preparation for the Olympics, in preparations for the large crowds that never came. But the taxis, like if you're coming into the airport, Tokyo Narita, Tokyo's most kind of busy airport for international flights, you might think to yourself, no problem, I just take a taxi. That's what I do at any airport that I go into. Well, if you take a taxi from Narita into central Tokyo, you should be prepared for $250 to be your bill for that taxi ride. It's a long way, and Japanese taxis are incredibly expensive. So Japanese taxis are really only viable for short range commutes, or unless you have far more money than I do. Now, they are the best taxis probably that you'll travel in the world because the people wear like suits and they wear, you know, the drivers wear white gloves, but you are definitely going to pay for it. And Shay says, all these things you're talking about, Chris, remind me of Singapore. A lot of the things are Singapore. Japan has more people for sure. And I think the taxis are cheaper in Singapore. Kyle says, I mastered the subway in New York City in Japan. I can't even read it. It is pretty challenging. But the good part is that the train stations in Japan and the trains are actually really clean, unlike in New York City where the train stations are gross and dirty, right? Most countries in the world that have subways, unfortunately, they are not clean and not very nice. But in Japan, I feel like if your food landed on the floor, you could almost eat off that floor, provided it had just been cleaned, right? Not it walked on. I don't know when they actually cleaned the New York City subway, but the Shinkansens, the bullet train, every time they get to their terminal stop, a whole crew comes on to clean it, which is something you rarely see in other countries, people cleaning the trains. Now, the whole number of transportation options and the expensive taxis, reason number 5 why you might not want to travel to Japan is it's often hard just to start your trip, like just to get to the airport and decide where to go. Many places you can arrive and you can get to the airport, have done zero research, and figure out how to get where you're going. Not so much in Japan. You really need to research that beforehand and plan for it, because to get from the airport to your hotel, you might have to take a few different trains or transfer to a bus or go from a train to a subway. You really need to know what that is, and if you just pick something, it's probably going to be the wrong one. And there's a lot of options. Like this is a brochure for how to get to Kansai Airport, and they're like, well, you can take the rapid train, or you can take the limited train, or you can take this kind of train, and you can see here's the map here. There's these different fares, and if you want this one, then you need the express fare ticket. That takes 30 minutes, but the regular one is 50 minutes. And so as a lot of people in the chat have said, that when you go to Japan, you need to do your research. The people who really don't like Japan are people who do zero research, get there and say, I'm going to figure it out, and you're absolutely not going to. And if you're going into Tokyo Narita, you should know it's about a 2-hour journey from Tokyo Narita to central Tokyo. So just be prepared for a little bit of extra time to get to your hotels. I've seen a couple questions. Kathy and Alex both have said, what am I drinking? Well, doing a video about Japan. I am drinking this. What is this? It is not tea today. I'm often drinking tea. People say, Chris, you drink too much tea. This is apple juice. But this is not any apple juice, because this apple juice I picked up this weekend at Seiwa, a local Japanese supermarket. This is Kodawari Ringo Japanese apple juice produced in Japan. Japanese apple, how much was it for this bottle? This bottle is 1 liter, 33 fluid ounces. This costs $7 for this bottle of apple juice from Japan, but it tastes just like drinking an apple. It's like the best apple juice you'll ever drink. Japanese apple juice is absolutely amazing, and I think worth $7. It's pretty good. And yes, I am drinking from a bendy straw. I'm that manly. Works much better with the microphone too. And to all the people who ask me what I'm drinking, I appreciate it. For all the people who hate me drinking, I'm sorry. It is really hard to talk for an hour and not drink. When you see newscasters, like, they don't drink, okay, because they have commercial breaks, so I actually have to drink. And Wu Tai says yellow drink. Nice. Yes, good themology. Can I use themology as a word? All right, let's go on to reason number 6 why you might not want to go to Japan. And that's because your first time in Japan, you're going to get lost, right? I mentioned it's hard to get around. You're going to be following signs that look like this on the floor that tell you to go that way, that tell you to go out this exit, and you're going to get lost. And you just need to embrace the fact that you're going to get lost. In particular, when you're taking public transportation, you're going to get on the wrong train. You're going to go out the wrong exit. Why is it a big deal if you go out the wrong exit? Well, in Shinjuku Station, that station in Tokyo that I mentioned that has 3.5 million people that go through it, it also has like 60 exits from the station. You know, even New York City subway, there's like 2 exits. There's the south exit, the north exit, 60 exits. And they sound really similar. From Shinjuku Station, there's the south exit. There's the new south exit. There's the southern terrace exit. And by the way, we were going to one of our favorite hotels. Our first time for was our favorite, the Hotel Century Southern Tower in Shinjuku, and they are very clear to say when you arrive in Shinjuku Station on the JR line, exit the Southern Terrace exit. We exited the South exit or the New South exit, and to get from there then to the Southern Terrace exit was nearly a 20-minute walk outside the station to do that, because like, how do you find the Southern Terrace exit? You just to find it. You may have to ask people. You have to look for signs because there's so many exits. There can't be signs for all the exits in all the same places. But just kind of be like, okay, well, this is not where we intended to be. And that is honestly part of the experience of going to Japan. Some other challenges about getting around. We already talked about the subway and train maps being complicated. Streets, navigating the streets in Japan. Most streets in Japan are not named. They're just streets. And the way people find things is by maps. Like if you were going to Tokyu Hands, one of the big kind of creative life department stores in Japan, on their website they would have a map, and they would tell you the way you get here is you go out of the train station, you walk 2 blocks, you turn left at the Yoshinoya, you go 1 block, and then you turn right at the Mossburger, and then you'll be at Tokyu Hands. They won't tell you the names of streets to go down because the streets don't have names. They also won't tell you the address because the addresses in Japan are not consistent like they are in most other places in the world. Most places in the world have the notion of street names and then these sequential addresses down the streets. In Japan, buildings are numbered based upon when they were built in that neighborhood. So the first building built in that neighborhood gets the number 1, the second building gets the number 2, the third building gets the number 3, but those buildings aren't necessarily next to each other, and so that's why everybody gives you a map to get around. And so if you're using like a GPS to try to put in navigation directions, the way you actually do that is with phone numbers. The GPS, you put in the phone number of where you want to go because it's kind of a unique thing, and they attach the phone numbers to the locations, and that's how you route things in a GPS. And Kyle asked, why do the streets have no names? I do not know why they have no names, but they don't. Anne says Japan would have more visitors if they were more travel friendly. We'll get into that. I actually think Japan is really trying to attract more international visitors. Clearly, that's why they hosted the Olympics. They're trying a lot. They still have a lot more to do, but we'll get to that a little more as we talk through this. And Jay says, yes, it took me a while to master the exits in Shinjuku. I'm sure it did. But then when you master it, you're like, we're a pro. OC Girl when we go back to that same hotel, we get there, we get to the platform, and we're like, okay, don't move. Don't start walking in a direction. Get your bearing, figure out which direction the Southern Terrace exit is, and go that way, because we don't want to end up walking a whole long direction some other way just to figure out where we're going, and turned out that we walked a whole long way in the wrong way. Now, the last thing I'll say about getting lost is that some people say another challenge about going to Japan, things they don't like, is that the Japanese are not helpful when you're lost. I have found the contrary to be true. I've found them to be very helpful. Anytime Osigro and I have been in a train station and looking really confused, like we have no idea where we're going, we often find the Japanese approach us and ask us to help. Our first time in Kyoto, we got super lost. We were at the famous golden temple, this temple that's all painted on the outside in gold, and trying to get back to the train station. And I had a great route that we were going to take, and it didn't get us to where we were going. This was in the time before Google Maps, and the time before GPS. We were so lost, and we asked a local Japanese that was walking around and asked if she could point us to the Eki train station, the Eki in Japanese. And her English wasn't great. She couldn't communicate with us in English, but she basically did the follow me. She turned around from the direction that she was walking and walked us 20 minutes in the opposite direction of where she was going to get us to the train station, and then she went back on her way. I was amazing and super nice. In that case, we did have to ask, but we find that the Japanese, actually, they really do welcome tourists, and they know that it's confusing, and so they'll often go out of their way to help people find where they go, but you just have to ask. And maybe people will be embarrassed to try and communicate with you if you only speak English, you don't speak any Japanese, so it does help to have some of those phrases, so in that case, she can at least be, oh, the Eki, I know you want to go to the Eki, I will take you to that train station. All right, the 7th reason why you might not want to visit Japan, I just touched on this one, is the language barrier. Lots of signs in Japan look like this, things in Japanese, but this sign is clearly telling people that if you want to find the Instagram page for this temple, it's called Daizaifu Tenmangu.official. I know that because I see Instagram and I see the picture and I see what looks like an Instagram username, but not the rest of the stuff. And this was a big temple that we went to that lots of foreigners go to. Why isn't there any better English signage? Well, Japanese, they learn English in school, but they don't have a lot of opportunity to practice it, and so they might not be able to speak it well, or they might be embarrassed by speaking it. So a lot of people say they don't like to go to Japan because they find it hard to make friends and socialize with the locals due to the language barrier. But I'll tell you, and maybe it's harder in the big cities, just like it is in any country. If you're in the big cities, people in a hurry, they're trying to get someplace. If you get out of the big cities, I've had quite lengthy conversations with people who their English isn't great, but they just wanted to talk to me. In particular, we were staying in an onsen, in a hot spring hotel, and I was in the onsen bath, and this was when President Obama was in office, and I know that because this 80-year-old Japanese man, who, by the way, is sitting next to me in this onsen hot spring bath. And as you do in onsen hot spring baths, you're naked, you don't wear clothes. And so this 80-year-old Japanese man, naked, is asking me what I think about President Obama, what my thoughts are about the president. We had a conversation for 15 or 20 minutes in this hot spring onsen bath, as best as he could, but he genuinely wanted to chat with me the whole time. And so you kind of have to be open to it, and I think also be approachable. Let's hit the road. Jack agrees that most people are super friendly. Yes, painkiller. So I had a note to actually tell you this, but a painkiller said it. My note was, I'm going to tell you the one magic word to just help kind of bring down the guards from people and open it up is sumimasen. Excuse me, sorry, and arigato. Yeah, if you know at least a few of them, then people know oh, okay, this person's trying just a little bit. Kathy says may have to learn a few common words. Absolutely. Kyle asks if people like Americans there. I think so. Obviously, in any country, there's going to be some people who don't like some nationalities, who don't like foreigners. We'll get to that as another number because there is a perception that Japanese do not like foreigners. And Jeff, he says language is one reason I wouldn't go, not a deal breaker though. Yeah, and so the language barrier, right? People are friendly outside of the big cities, but English is better in the big cities. So the 8th reason why you might not want to go to Japan is that there's really a lack of English signage outside of Japan's big cities. In particular, this was a train station on a recent trip to Fukushima Prefecture. You can see the train has some English on it, so you know what it is, but this train station had no English. That's the sign to tell you what this train station is, which leaves you to kind of be is this my stop? I'm not sure where I should go. So this is another one where if you're out of the big cities and you're trying to go between historic attractions in the countryside, it's going to be a huge challenge because you're not going to find any signs that'll help you. There's another one where you have to do your research beforehand, but particularly in Tokyo with the build-up to the Olympics, they've added a lot of English signage. Buses, though. Buses are the one area that I don't recommend for international visitors almost ever because they're so hard to use if you don't speak any Japanese. Having Google Maps has made it a little bit better because you can at least see where you are and you can tell if you're near the stop, but that's one where most of those still only make their announcements in Japanese, and the signs on the bus are still often only Japanese. They don't bother with the English because they don't think any foreigners are really going to ride the bus. But there's a lot of attractions, like if you want to go visit the snow monkeys in Nagano, the best way to get there is via bus. Ben from the Travel Man podcast says, hey Chris, you can download apps that translate foreign languages. Great, I use it sometimes. That's a great tip, Ben. Actually, I've used Google Translate to talk to some of the hotel staff before. And by the way, that's a great time since Ben just popped on here. Ben is going to be the special guest on the live stream next week, where we're going to be talking about what American fast food restaurants are like in Australia. Who better to talk to that about but an Australian Ben? He hasn't been on a live stream for a couple of years, so it'll be great to have Ben back on the show in a couple weeks. Martin says, do products say made in Japan there? Generally, yeah, I think they're actually pretty proud of the things that are made in Japan. I mean, it's probably not going to say it like in English, you know, like, right? This, let me put this in front of my face so it zooms in on it. This apple juice on it, nowhere does it say made in Japan in the Japanese. I mean, in English that you can see, but obviously on the thing where they focus, not on my eye, go away, right? Well, anyway, that says made in Japan. That's not going to focus because it's too close. All right. Okay, right. And so part of that language barrier are some of the signs and how they look. Painkiller said, I saw a sign in Osaka that said domestic beef. I assume it had an O in it, right, to tell you that it was made in Japan. Let's hit the road jacks is one of the best reasons for the beer vending machines. The beer vending machines are amazing, particularly in the airport, in the lounges. Also, the beer vending machines where you can just get a can of beer from a vending machine, too. This is a great one. Murdercroffic Mafia says, isn't it weird to expect other countries to learn English? Shouldn't English speakers learn the local language first? I think that's a great perspective, Meritocratic Mafia. But I'm not these people who say this is the reason why they won't go. But there are many people who have that perspective. I think that, you know, but I mean, on this note, I think there are people that do just kind of have a valid point to say, well, English menus, those sorts of things help. But, you know, there is sort of this perspective. I feel like here, let's put this apple juice like this. That English is almost like the world tourism language, right? That's like it's hard to speak all the languages, but say like in Europe, right? Like the language that they often speak, that they learn how to speak is English, so that someone in Sweden can talk to somebody from Italy that they kind of talk in English as the common language. And I think that because of that, you know, those of us who grew up in English-speaking countries, as like English is our first language, I mean, there certainly is like a bit of privilege of having English as your first language and not having to have it be that intermediary translation. So the ninth thing why you might not want to go to Japan, and this is the tourism information also isn't in English. The signs aren't in English. People don't speak English. The tourist information also generally isn't in English. The Japanese love to travel around their country. They have a really great tourism infrastructure. Every train station will have a tourist information center like this, but you'll go in there and most of the pamphlets will be in Japanese. 98% of them will be in Japanese. There may be one English one in there. There might be more Chinese ones, because I actually get maybe more Chinese tourists than they do English-speaking tourists. You might find one English-speaking staff person who might be able to write some things on the Japanese one. That's what I usually do. It's hard to like go in there and just pick up things. You have to like often like talk to somebody and have them kind of like decipher and translate it for you. But you know, when OC Girl and I have gone to a lot of parts of Japan that are sort of far in a field, Fukushima Prefecture is another great example. There's a lot of books that are written on places in Japan, but they're then only in Japanese, and they never translate them to English or any other languages. So then we buy the Japanese ones because OC Girl can read a little bit of Japanese and kind of look at the pictures and be like, we should go to these places, and then try to look them up. This is actually, if there's a, you know, people ask me like, Chris, why did you start Yellow Productions? One of the reasons is the lack of great English travel content on Japan. A lot of these places we went to, there was just zero English articles, English videos, and so I can easily make the best one when there is no competition. Kathy says, what's the point of having the information center if the flyer's not in English? It's for the Japanese who travel around. That's what they learn to do, basically, is, right, you go someplace and you go to the tourist information center and say, hey, where do I go? And Jay says, yes, anywhere that you go that's far away from an international tourist area, there's always a language area and lesser English. All right. Okay, let's go on to number 10. The 10th reason why you might not want to visit Japan. a lot of people have a culture shock when they get there. Just like the movie Lost in Translation, they look at these temples, they look at these people, they see what's going on. Everything seems so foreign from what they're used to that they just kind of lose it, right? If you've seen the movie Lost in Translation, that's what happens to Bill Murray in Japan. He basically just loses it because he doesn't understand anything. And just ends up, I'll just stay in my hotel, and I'll have an affair in my hotel too, because I've really lost it. Sorry if that's spoiler alert if you haven't seen Lost in Translation. But if you've only ever traveled to Americas and Europe, Japan's really different, and sometimes people take the Japanese reserved culture as being unfriendly, but it really isn't. It's just reserved. And often I've heard people say they perceive Japanese to have a lack of joy of life and lack of cheeriness, particularly without being drunk. So I should address the drinking for a moment. It does seem like it's a Japanese national business pastime in the evenings as part of doing business to drink a lot of alcohol. A lot. And so if you're walking around the streets of big cities at 10, 11 o'clock at night, you will see a lot of drunk businessmen. And so I mentioned there's the last train. The one train you're definitely going to want to avoid is the last train, because that's going to be the drunk train. That's going to be the smelly drunk train that you don't want to be on. That's another one where people, if they ride that, they end up with a bad experience. Ben says Lost in Translation is literally one of my favorite all-time movies. It is a great movie for sure. Let's see. Jack says definite culture shock. I got to Tokyo's main train station right at rush hour. Never seen so many people in one place, all trying to go in different directions. Absolutely. And somehow it works. Like somehow they keep going, and it doesn't just cause a big scragmazzle. People keep moving through. And then Eric says all of these reasons are kind of reasons I miss Japan. Yeah, I think if you're a Japanophile, someone who loves Japan, then you actually find all these things to be a little bit endearing. Isn't it interesting? There are some things some people hate, and there's some things that some people love, right? The 11th reason that you might not want to go to Japan is that the Japanese are perceived to not like foreigners. No foreigners is a common phrase you will see on signs, at bars, in restaurants. There was a big, worldwide news article about a hotel in Tokyo recently, just a couple weeks ago, putting up signs about their hotels to say certain elevators are for Japanese and other hotels are foreigners. In particular, this is what that sign looked like at this hotel in Tokyo, basically to say, hey, this elevator is for foreigners, and please avoid traveling with Japanese customers. And, in their defense, they came back to say that, well, we were just trying to separate the visitors from the people who weren't visitors. But, clearly the way they articulated it was there's foreigners and then there's Japanese, right? But there might be, people that are not Japanese who live in Japan, as opposed to, hey, if you're visiting for the Olympics, then, please hang out in this one. And if you live in Japan, please hang out in this one. All right. Kyle says that is racist. That is definitely what the big brouhaha on the on the internets was about that. I think it was likely a language misunderstanding in the way they tried to say things. But Japan does have a very ethnically centric Japanese population. It's something like 98% Japanese, and so embracement of foreigners is not as high in Japan as it is in other places. Chase said, I didn't like the movie Lost in Translation at all. Thought it portrayed Japan in a very bad light. I personally don't think it portrayed Japan in a bad light. I think it portrayed Japan through the eyes of a visitor that has that view of Japan, and I think a lot of people have that eye on Japan. And I've been in some of those situations. If you watch my last live stream about what it's like to be on Japanese TV, where he's drinking his Suntory whiskey and says, for relaxing times, make it Suntory time. And the director tells him, more intensity. For relaxing times, make it Suntory time. more intensity, right? But that's, I mean, that is a little bit about what the conversation might very well be. I'll say I've been in those conversations, and that's just it is what it is. Randy says there are no expats like Singapore. Singapore has a much more integrated population. I feel like Singapore is like a really great example of a multicultural country. Japan does not have that same vibe at all. And Wu Tai says Bill Murray is a national treasure. I think so. And Vic says, yes, the intent of the Japanese is not to be prejudiced. I agree with that statement as well, though there is a culture steeped in Japanese, not foreigners, exclusion, men over women, those sorts of things, but that's what also makes Japan what it is. Okay, the 12th reason why you might not like to travel to Japan is there are a lot of rules. There are a lot of rules when you go to Japan. It's kind of crazy. This is an example of rules that you might see on the Tokyo subway. Actually, there's a picture of rules on the Tokyo subway. So they'll tell you, as you handle your luggage, please be considerate of the people around you. This is how to use the priority seats. Don't use your cell phone. Don't do this. Don't do that. If you're looking for a destination where you can just kind of unwind, have a good time, and not have to pay attention to anything or anybody, Japan's probably not the place, because you do have to try to be harmonious. That's what living in Japan is like. As a traveler, they will give you some leeway and not expect you to understand all of their rules, but you'll probably experience a bit of maybe stink eye from people, though I don't think typically they aren't upfront enough to just be like, hey, don't sit there, don't stand there, right? They'll just be like, I hate these people that can't follow our rules. But that's one thing that people say. One thing, right? Say, so the story I have about these rules, and somebody said this, and so this story attached to this one. Robert says the Chinese are perceived to be rude, and the translation to English is awful. So related to rules. So Osigro and I on our last trip, we visited Sendai in Japan. Sendai, biggest city north of Tokyo on the mainland. And in Sendai, we were in a pharmacy. And there was a Chinese tour group, 10 people, that were also in the pharmacy with us. We weren't there to get drugs. Osiguro was there to get some Japanese makeup. Japanese pharmacies are really popular as a place to buy souvenirs and things to bring back, a lot of the makeup and their products. But there was this Chinese fellow as part of this group who was so loud. He was so loud that the pharmacy staff actually said, "Sir, we're just gonna ask you to wait outside. Please wait outside. You're so loud, you're disturbing the other customers," which is something that they will do in Japan that they won't do many other places, right? And in the U.S., you can probably be as loud as you want to in a pharmacy, and they'll never kick you out. I mean, if you've been following the stories in San Francisco, you can bring in a black garbage bag and steal everything in the store, and nobody tells you to stop. So, yeah, Kyle likes these sorts of things and says that, right, Japan gets points for that. Wu Tai says, do not have drugs in Japan ever. That's a good tip. And Points Traveler points out to always carry your passport. Right, this is not one I brought up on this, but a common Japanese policing practice is for the police just to go up to people and ask them for their identification and to write it down. Ask them what we're doing. And that's happened to me as a foreigner a few times, especially if a camera around this and that, or the Japanese police just come up and says, "Oh, excuse me, can I see your identification? Can you tell me what you're doing?" They open up their little notebook, they write it down, and they say, "Okay, great, thank you very much." But people often perceive that as, again, profiling, or they're going after the visitor. I mean, they do that to locals too, but that's just part of their part of what they do. Right. Jack says casinos are popular, in particular pachinko. I don't think that makes a reason not to visit, but pachinko is probably a whole different story. Okay, so let's go on to reason number 13. You might not want to go to Japan. So I mentioned Japan has a big drinking culture, but the bars in Japan are expensive. Like in Tokyo, the bar, like if you go to a bar, like an izakaya type bar, they're often quite expensive. If you're getting a beer at your hotel, it's often quite expensive. The But for people who want to drink beer, the local Japanese, they will often get beer from a vending machine for like $3 for a can of beer, or they'll get it from the 7-Eleven and like drink it back in their hotel room or drink it next to the vending machine. It's once you want to go drink in an establishment that it's going to cost you more. The other thing that a lot of people don't like about Japanese bars is many of them have time limits. They will say maybe there's a 90-minute time limit and you got to get out because they want to turn the tables around. You can only drink so much, and so they want people to drink more. Okay, the 14th reason that you might not want to go to Japan is Japan has a lot of high-end food, but the high-end food is expensive. In particular, you might find a sushi restaurant, really good sushi restaurant, for $300 a person. The Kobe beef might cost you $200 for that one portion, but this expensive food will be the best food you've had in the world, right? The price you pay for this premium food is the best food, but it's super expensive. And so there's a lot of people who say, I'm not going to go because everything's so expensive. And I'll tell you, not everything's expensive. The expensive stuff is insanely expensive. Like Japan's high level for food is higher than I think any place else in the world. But you can easily get lunch for $5 in Tokyo. You can easily get a beer for $3, for 300 yen in Tokyo. But you just again, it's not. Do your research. Is that the phrase that I'm going to say? Right? You actually have to do your research and find it. Rocketry says, as someone who ate Japanese food, it's pricey but worth it. I agree. Gilberto says Japan equals expensive, and I actually think that that's like a legend, and I don't find Japan to equal expensive. I think that that's like an unfounded rumor, and Japan can actually be quite reasonable to travel to, but it's another one where you just, maybe you don't find the first order stuff, you have to find the second or third order stuff, and Jack says the same thing. It can be very expensive, and it could be affordable. Vic says, I would never spend $300 on a meal. I have never spent $300 myself on a meal. We did eat at a sushi restaurant in Tokyo that was $200 a person. It's the best sushi I've ever had. It was the meal that changed my view on sushi forever. I always said before that I hated sushi. I had that place, and I'm like, oh, this is sushi. This is actually pretty good. So Jack says, I don't eat the seafood, so eating at McDonald's and the corner stores are pretty cheap. They are. You can get like a whole meal at 7-Eleven at the corner stores. It's actually tasty and good for like $10. Fill yourself up for dinner. 15th reason that you might not want to go to Japan is if you love Southeast Asia, if you love traveling around Southeast Asia, Thailand, Indonesia, and you love the prices there, and you love how far your dollar will take you in those countries, it's not going to take you that far in Japan. Japan can be inexpensive, but Japan is never cheap, unlike Thailand, where people say, hey, I stay in a great hotel for $20 and I have dinner for 50 cents. Getting your tea from a stall like this is a lot different than getting your tea from a 100-story skyscraper. So that's a big difference. Kyle says, Chris, do they have McDonald's in Japan? They sure do. McDonald's in Japan is pretty good. The biggest difference I would say of the McDonald's in Japan is all the drinks are smaller. So, if this was a large drink in the U.S., the same large drink in Japan would be like half the size of the American large. Same thing with the fries. Everything is just a bit smaller. And Jack says they have teriyaki Big Mac, and that McDonald's in Japan is cheaper. So thank you for that perspective. I think, McDonald's has gotten really quite expensive in the U.S. recently. Points Traveler says you may not get as much food poisoning. Their food sanitary levels are impressive. And Robert says there is no bargaining in Japan. True, right? Whatever the posted price is, that's the posted price. No haggling, and they don't like it all that much. And Kathy says they actually have their own unique name for McDonald's in Australia, which we're going to talk about next week when we talk about American fast food in Australia with our special guest host, Ben the Travelman. The 16th reason that you might not like traveling to Japan, particularly if you're from the West and you like Western food, is that the Western food in Japan is which is weird. It's my best way to describe it. Particularly Western breakfast. Pancakes in particular. Like pancakes are not the same in Japan as they are in the rest of the West. This is a restaurant that specializes in pancakes. That's all they specialize in. This restaurant does not open until the afternoon. Why do you get pancakes in the afternoon? Because at this restaurant, the pancakes are eaten as a dessert. They're a souffle pancake. At the courtyard in Tokyo, as part of the breakfast buffet, they had pancakes, and their pancakes were in the shape of a golf ball, like big round things. I'm like, that is the strangest looking pancake. The eggs are super runny. Like if you get scrambled eggs, they're super runny, and if you get bacon, it is super undercooked. I have learned if I get the option in a hotel of the Western breakfast and anything else, I will take anything else, because generally anything else is better than the Western breakfast that most hotels actually prepare. Now, Kyle says that looks awesome. Now, I will tell you, these dessert pancakes that we had, they were actually quite tasty, but they're not a breakfast food. And they call them souffle pancakes because they're really light and fluffy. And Fubi says, yeah, like Wendy's in Japan sells pasta. It's very like the Western food. It's a whole different interpretation of it. Kyle asked what other fast food they have. There's a lot of fast food in Japan. There's a lot of Western fast. They've got like Taco Bell in Japan, so you'll find a lot of things there. Though Jack says, I had the worst pizza of my life at Shakey's in Japan. I can believe that. The pizza is really weird too. You know, pizza with like sweet potato on it. I mean, things that are just like, I don't know that's really, I don't know the sweet potato should really go on pizza. Kyle says, how does the breakfast in Japan and the breakfast there, I'm not sure what you're asking, Kyle, but like a Japanese breakfast is very different from Western breakfast. You'll often have like fish and rice and soup. So Japanese breakfasts are very different. Okay. The 17th reason why you might not want to visit Japan is if you can't be on time, like if time is just more of a suggestion for you, you shouldn't go to Japan. They are super strict on time. Here they were posting the sunset. You know, it's not 5 o'clock, it's 5:06 because that's when the sun sets. If you're checking into a hotel and a hotel has a 3 p.m. check-in, don't think you can check in at 2:55. And I'm not exaggerating. Like if you get to a hotel, it's 3 p.m. check-in, you're there at 2:55, they will ask you to wait 5 minutes to check in at 3 p.m. when the check-in time. That has happened to us many times in Japan. You know, as I like to get, like at onsen hotels, I like to enjoy as much of the onsen hotel as possible. So we'll get there, you know, right there, a little before check-in time. Please wait in the lobby, and when it's check-in time, we'll come for you. Looks like check-in time to us. Nope, still got 5 minutes to go. All right. If you have a dinner reservation in Japan at 6 o'clock and you thought 6:15 was a time you could get to it, they're going to give that table to somebody else. 6 o'clock. Ford says, if you are enjoying this video, please hit the like button. Yes, we currently have 170 people on and 71 likes. If you've not hit that like button yet, please do so. Every thumbs up on this video goes to help feed the hungry Yellow Productions crew. They get a piece of bamboo for every like, so please feed the Yellow Productions crew their bamboo. The 18th reason that you might not want to visit Japan is the weather. Yeah, the weather in Japan is not great. Like Hawaii, the reason you want to go to Hawaii is the weather in Hawaii is amazing. But the weather in Japan, really cold and snowy in the winter in lots of Japan. Maybe Tokyo doesn't get a ton of snow, but a lot of, particularly the northern parts of Japan, get a lot of snow. In the summer, I'm sure you're hearing all the news about the Olympics. Really hot, really oppressively humid. So if you do go to Japan, to avoid the really cold, snowy winters and the really hot, oppressive summers, spring and fall, those are the times you want to go to Japan, not winter or summer. The 19th reason you might not want to go to Japan is there aren't any good beaches. This is what a typical Japanese beach looks like, kind of really gray sand. Usually Japan's not really that sunny. Usually the days are a bit more gray. Just kind of look like this. There are good beaches in Okinawa, but the mainland of Japan, not great beaches. A lot of people, when they go on vacation, want to find a good beach. You will not find them in the mainland of Japan. 20th reason you might not want to go to Japan is there's really a lack of Wi-Fi. For such a high-tech society, it's really hard to find free Wi-Fi, free or paid. It's just really hard to find public Wi-Fi. And when you do find public Wi-Fi, you'll find it often has a complicated sign-up process in Japanese only, right? So you're like, I got on it, great. Oh, I can't figure out what to put into these things, right? I need to put in my cell phone number in Japanese to have it send me a text to confirm that I can get on. But I don't have a Japanese cell phone number. That's why I wanted to get on the Wi-Fi in the first place. Kyle says the beach looks awful. Yeah, the beaches are not great. And Kyle says the Wi-Fi is awful. And Erica says, yes, Japan has Washington, D.C. weather. I agree. Japan does have Washington, D.C. weather. And yes, that is why D.C., the cherry trees grow very well. And Brandon says if you're going to go to Okinawa, visit in the winter. That's probably a good time to go there. It'll probably be too hot in the summer. That would be a good one to get in the winter. Jay says Wi-Fi has gotten better. Thank you for that report, Jay. Still not as good as it needs to be, I believe. And the 21st reason why you might not want to go to Japan is they still a lot of cigarette smoke in Japan. And OC Girl makes a little cameo right here. This was when we were at the natural hot springs in Beppu, Japan. And this was a really smelly, sulfurous hot spring. But there's so much cigarette smoke and bars and on the streets and things like that in Japan. They smoke a lot in Japan. And so if you don't like the smells of cigarette smoke, you might not like visiting Japan. Particularly hotels still have smoking and non-smoking rooms. On our last trip into Fukushima Prefecture, I think they put us, one of the hotels put us in a smoking room, and we were like, no, you need to, not this room. We're not going to be able to sleep in this room. You need to give us another room. You know, with all this, I think, to me, visiting Japan is less about the attractions and the temples and the tourist sites, and for me, it's really about the experience. I feel like Japan as a whole, it's just the whole thing that you fall in love with. And many fellow explorers said some of these things, Chris, that you said are annoying, I find endearing, and you put them all together, and it makes Japan what it is. You know, it makes Japan how fast the service is at McDonald's. Like, you go to McDonald's, and it'll be the best service of any McDonald's ever. You know, I love that people in Japan, they take pride in their jobs, they take pride in the society that they're in, and that's what makes Japan such a great experience to travel around. And, you know, maybe if Japan didn't have all these cons, more people would go, and then it would be overrun, and then it wouldn't be so great for the rest of us who do go to Japan. So that brings us to the part of our show where it's now...
Fellow explorers, it is now Q&A time. If you've got a question, I've got an answer.
So it's Q&A time, but first I want to share a couple of things from the Summer Video Travel Photo Contest. If you haven't heard about this, I'm encouraging submissions of photos of you wearing a yellow shirt anywhere you go, videos like travel style guides in a yellow shirt, or if there's some pandas you find in your travels that you want to submit to go up here on some of these monitors, I've got those as well. I'll give out some exclusive Yellow Productions merchandise. I'm making some Yellow Productions hoodies, some sweatshirts for the people who win as the top in each one of these categories. So I want to share... Susie, right here, I should get rid of myself so you can see her. Susie took this one at the Houston Zoo in a tube inside one of their fish tanks. I thought that was pretty neat. Thank you for that submission, Susie. And then Gilberto from Brazil shared with us a 1-minute travel guide in Brazil. So let's take a look at Gilberto's. This is the first video submission. So let's take a look at the first full. We saw a couple weeks ago, we saw Gilberto's kind of trial one to encourage you to submit your videos. Well, Gilberto submitted the first one, the first real one. I'm looking out for more, but let's take a look at this from Gilberto.
A few things to know before visiting Mangabeiras Park. The first thing to know is Mangabeiras Park is in Belo Horizonte City, Brazil, South America. It's far, far away from Los Angeles. To compensate the distance, the entrance park is free. I know I'm breaking one of the cruise rules to make a good video, but I'm trying to show you how beautiful is this park, and also my daughters, asking you to remember to use comfort and non-slippery shoes, because the streets are made for this type of cobblestone, and as you can see, some are very inclined. Here you will find the skate ramps. They are small and you have a big one too. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will say goodbye because it's your turn to record your own video and send it to Chris Summer Contacts. Bye!
Right on. Thank you, Gilberto. That was awesome. I loved seeing Gilberto's daughters telling you to like this video. By the way, I see we're up to 97 likes. Can you all give some likes for Gilberto? With 3 more likes, we'll get this up to 100. That was super awesome, Gilberto. And he gave you all a challenge, submit more videos, because right now, Gilberto's winning. Gilberto's winning. Are you all going to let Gilberto win? Maybe you are if you don't submit any more videos, but if you want to challenge Gilberto, definitely make sure to send in your videos. Brandon says Gilberto is the Brazil Yellow Productions correspondent for sure. That was amazing. And Rhonda got her shirts. Gilberto donated his shirt from a couple weeks ago. So Rhonda, that's great to hear. Excellent. So in the Q&A here, let's see. Kyle says, are the subway train announcers easy to understand? In Tokyo and Osaka, the big cities, they absolutely are. So no problem there. Let's see. Jennifer asks, are there any meals that I recommend in Japanese vending machines? I don't eat a lot of food from the vending machines. It's usually drinks. So I like all the drinks from the Japanese vending machines. One of my favorite is CC Lemon. By the way, the traveling princess came here to join us towards the end of this. Let me move this monitor out of the way so she gets some more light on her. There we go. And I see we're up to 103 likes now, so that's fantastic. If you like the traveling princess, go and give her a few more likes. Kyle says, are there any hotels that have big rooms? I think if you look at the big Western chains, they'll often have big rooms. I like the Hyatt Place in Tokyo. The Hotel Century Southern Tower is pretty good too. So those are good options. Let's see. Sean says, are there any casinos in Japan? Are there casino hotels in Japan? That's actually like a thing that's being built out. It's mostly pachinko. I don't think they've really made casinos a big thing yet, but they are trying to build that out.
Yes, it's the time you've been waiting for. It's time for the giveaway.
Okay, this one is going to take a little bit of Japan knowledge to answer this question. And I put up a picture earlier of a Buddha. And so if you can tell me where in Japan that Buddha is, you will win a Yellow Productions Crew shirt shipped to you anywhere in the world. And I'm going to let you type where that Buddha is first, and I'm going to put that picture up on the screen. So where in Japan is this Buddha? If you can tell me what city in Japan this Buddha is in, then you'll win a Yellow Productions Crew shirt shipped to you. Yes, who will it be? Rhonda says, who is going to be the winner? That is good. Rhonda says we're looking forward to the winner chicken dinner. So we've got some people saying Kyoto. This Buddha is not in Kyoto. Here we go. We have a winner.
And now we have a winner chicken dinner.
All right, JTK Ida. JTK. That's probably a name, right? But congratulations, you win. That Buddha is the Daibatsu, the big Buddha in Kamakura. Send me an email. You'll find the link in my description below. Send me your address. Let me know what size Yellow Productions Crew shirt you want, and I will get it right off to you. Gilberto also gave the second correct right answer. Jay gave the third. But you guys weren't number first. JT right here was number one. All right. Well, everybody, it's always great to have you on the live streams today. Encourage you to submit your photos, pandas, videos to the summer travel contest. Information on how to submit to that is in the description of this video. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in the next video next week. Travel Man Ben will be talking all about American fast food in Australia. Traveling Princess, why don't you wave to everybody out there?